Hello and welcome back to another session of the Money Mastery Summit. My name is Quynh Vo. I am your host. And next up is a special treat for you because Eric Edmeades is an internationally recognized business speaker, film producer, and serial entrepreneur. Eric has varied business backgrounds, includes mobile computing, medical simulation, augmented reality gaming, 3D camera engineering, and Hollywood special effects. Eric is also the founder of WildFit and the creator of both Inception Marketing, which is a great program, and the business freedom, a business ownership methodology that empowers you to own a business that doesn't own you. But you know what? Today, he is here to share with you the secrets of how to deliver an amazing signature talk anytime, anywhere, without having to memorize anything. And you are just one talk away from that big success in your life. And Eric, I'm so happy to have you here on this call.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It looks like you've put together a great group of people, but you know what I've noticed? A lot of them are hiding with their cameras off. Have you noticed this?
Totally.
Look at Cammie and Brian and Carol Ann and Charles and Claire and Lindy. And, I find that guys, get your cameras on and let's join in together. Like, let's have some fun together here.
Let's do this. And by the way, Eric is the one person that can get you from camera shy to camera, what's the word? Opposite of shy, Eric. Like a star. A camera shy to camera star. How's that?
There you go. There we go. See a few more people. It's a lot more fun when we get a bunch of them. Hello, Carol Ann. There you are.
Totally.
See? Awesome. Hello, Brian. Well, Quynh, I'm really glad to be here. I've kind of got a casual, format. What I was thinking today is I want to share some ideas about how we can use communication and speaking in front of an audience or a camera to help get our missions out to the world. But here's something that I've been sharing a lot this last couple of years, and I think that it's a sort of theory of mine. But that is that in our world today, with the way the internet is today and the way culture is, it is possible these days to design a talk and deliver that talk and have that talk change your whole life. It's absolutely possible to have that happen where you design a talk, deliver that talk, and that talk just creates all kinds of magic for you. And I want to put to you that I believe that there's no skill more valuable in the professional, business, or personal world for that matter than being really comfortable with getting your word out to the world. So I want to ask before we get started here, if you guys can tell me in the chat, I want to know how nervous you are about speaking. I want to start there. Like, so if you have no nervousness, you're a 0. Like you're just walk on the stage, no problem. Walk in front of the camera, no problem, 0. And if you're like a 10, well, you're terrified. So, and then where are you in the middle? I just want to know where everybody is in terms of their level of nervousness. So we got some, let's see here, 7 to 10, 8, 10, 9, 1 or 2, no problem. 7, 6, 7, 1, 4, 7, 8. And okay, so you can see it's all over the board. It's all over the board. There are some people not terrified, other people totally terrified. So the first thing I want to share with you is that nobody was born afraid of public speaking. Nobody was born that way. They weren't. What happens is you're born very comfortable with public speaking. I can prove it to you. Who here has been on a plane with an 18-month-old baby? Ever? Did that baby seem afraid of public speaking to you? No, right? But somewhere after that 18 months, somewhere at the 2 to 3 years to a little bit more, 12 years, things happen in the life of that person. And those things condition them to be like nervous or afraid or holding back. And so what we want to do is see what causes those things and try to help people undo it. Because here's the thing is there's no real risk. Like if you think about it, we have all this fear. Oh my God, I'm standing in front of this audience. Well, what is the fear? Are you afraid they're going to decapitate you? Are you worried that they're going to throw things at you? Are you worried that you're going to, like, nothing bad could actually happen except maybe you could feel a little embarrassed or something. It's not that big a deal. But for some reason, because we learned in school, largely, to be afraid of public speaking, we carry that fear with us today. Does this make sense, everybody? Give me hands up here if this makes sense. All right. All right, cool. So I want to talk a little bit about how to overcome that fear so everybody can start to feel a little bit better. One of the things is, I really want you to understand that nervousness and excitement are basically the same thing. They're basically the same emotion. There's one big difference between nervousness and excitement, and this is the difference. Nervousness is excitement with a negative expectation, and excitement is nervousness with a positive expectation. Otherwise, they're basically the same physiological conditions, the heart racing, the breathing fast, the sweaty palms, whatever. They're basically the same emotion in the physical body, but the difference is what you're picturing in your head. So, how many of you guys have ever been thinking about something in your future and you've managed to make yourself so excited that you can feel it in your body, even though the event isn't there yet? Who's ever managed to do that? Yeah? All right. Who's ever done this one though? There's an event out there in the future and you've managed to terrify yourself about that event in the future. How many of you have ever managed to just completely terrify yourself? And then how many of you have then gone into the event and found out that nothing even close to your terror happened? Right? And then how many of you have done this over and over and over again, expecting somehow that you expect it to be terrifying and then it isn't terrifying and then you do it again? Who's done it more than once? All right. So I want you to think about the sense of this, because I really want to get across this point that your comfort with public speaking is everything to do with your quality of life. Your comfort with communication has everything to do with your quality of life. The more comfortable you are to say what you need to say, the more comfortable you are to say what needs to be said, the more satisfying your life experience will be. And I think this is an incredibly, incredibly important point. I don't know if how many of you want to write a book one day? I'm curious. How many of you would like to write a book? Okay, I'll tell you right now, if you're going to write a book, you're going to need to be a speaker. It's just how it is. You're going to need to be on radio and on podcasts and on television. You're going to be doing talks at events. You're going to want to be a public speaker. Best possible way to sell your books. How many of you are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs? You might want to start a business one day. Great. You need to be a public speaker. You need to be able to talk to your staff. You need to be able to raise money from investors. You need to be able to communicate effectively. And I could keep going, because I don't care what job you have, what business you have, what project you have, what social thing you want to accomplish. If you're an effective communicator, it's going to accelerate the process. Right now, you are one talk away from some major breakthrough. I don't know what the breakthrough is for you. You're one talk away from a best-selling book. You're one talk away from a documentary, from getting an agent. You're one talk away from a huge fee. You're one talk away from launching your career, raising money for your company, launching a political career, starting an environmental movement. If you give that one talk and you give it really well, you can change everything. There's some great examples of this. You have Simon Sinek goes off and does a TEDx talk, and it just goes out to millions of people. And all of a sudden his speaking fees are up and he's got best-selling books. And Brené Brown, same thing. Off she goes, massive TEDx talk victory. Now she's got multiple New York Times bestsellers and an incredible consulting career. And I'm not saying they didn't put other work in. I'm saying that the talk is what made the difference, that the talk was a tipping point moment, that the skill to be able to present like that is a major, major asset. Does this make sense to everybody? You guys in?
Yeah.
All right. So here's what I thought that I would share with you is I want to share with you a story about one of the talks that I did. And it's kind of a fun story, but it has some moments in it that might give you some tips about how to get better and comfortable with speaking. And here's basically what happened is that my father, first thing I have to explain is that my father's in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I'm not supposed to tell you that because, anonymous, right? But he tells everybody. So I think it's okay to tell you. Like he wrote an article for the Saturday Evening Post all over the world in his name. Like, I'm not blowing his anonymity here. He blows it all the time. So since I am allowed to tell you, since I feel allowed to tell you that, I can tell you that he called me one day at my office and he said, I need you to come and give me my AA birthday cake at my meeting. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, no way am I doing that. Not in a million years. Why did I not want to do it? Because I was terrified of public speaking. There's no way I was standing in front of 200 people giving a talk. No way. Not going to happen. And by the way, when you're really afraid of something, are you usually good at coming up with good excuses? Yeah. My first excuse, I'm not a member of AA. You have to be a member to speak at a meeting. Is this a good excuse?
Yep.
I think so. But he's like, yeah, but they'd probably make an exception, because you're my son and everything else. And then I was like, well, here's my next excuse. But I'm busy that day anyway. And then he pointed out that he hadn't even told me which day it was. So that's a problem, right? And he kept persisting and kept pushing, but I just said no. And then he called me back about 3 days later. By the way, there's a little clue here. He calls me, say on Monday, asks me to speak at his meeting. I think it was going to be that Sunday. And basically, I can't hold food down. I can't eat. I'm terrified. Even though I said no. Why is that? If you think you know the answer, put it in the chat. I've said no, but I'm still terrified. I'm still nervous. Why? Why am I nervous even though I said no? Yeah, you will still be doing it. Well, I've said no, so I don't believe that I'm still going to be doing it. What else? Why else might I feel that way? Well, I'll tell you. Because I was terrified that I might change my mind. You understand? Because as you said, Gabriel, because I kind of on some level wanted to do it. And I was terrified that I might change my mind. And that's why I would get sick right up until the event was gone. And anyway, so my dad called me one day. He's like, you got to do it, man. It's like, you got my sponsor's out of town. My best friend is out of town. You got to do it. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not doing it. And he goes, Eric, come on. It's not a big one. What do you mean it's not a big one? And he goes, well, it's like the 15th. It's not the 15th. It's the 13th. Like, it's not like number 10 or number 5 or number 15. It's not a big one. And I started thinking to myself, wow, dude, you just don't understand sobriety at all. Like every single day is just important as the last day. Except the only day that might be more important is day one. After that, every single day of sobriety is it. And here I am feeling all this passion about this. And as soon as I had enough passion, my mouth said to him, okay, we'll do it. We'll give you the cake on. What? Who said that? And one of the things I learned in that moment is that when you really get some passion about your message, it becomes easier to deliver the message. It's a big deal. The more passion you have, the more obstacles you can overcome. And so my passion got me over my fear. Now, it didn't end the fear. It just got me over it enough to agree to do it. Now I was terrified. And so I show up. I show up for this meeting. And I sit. Where do I sit? Back row. Why? Thinking of leaving. I'm seriously thinking of leaving. So I got to sit at the back row because I might be out of here. I might be in Las Vegas in 4 hours. I'm out. I'm leaving, man. I don't want to be here. And then also I'm sitting back there and I find out it's just like the classroom, right? Who sits at the back of the classroom? The bad boys. Isn't it true? The bad boys and girls sit at the back of the classroom. So I'm back there and I discover that there are, in fact, bad boys sitting back there. And you know who they are? And you can tell me if this is encouraging or alarming. You tell me. But there's a lot of airline pilots in AA. There's a lot of them. I'm like, this is either incredibly good news or very disturbing. I'm not sure which it is. But here's what I found out about these pilots. They're crazy people back there. They're like drummers in rock bands. They're crazy people. They're making jokes. And so I'm thinking to myself, my God, they're making jokes about the speaker and they're going to do the same thing to me. So I'm feeling even worse. I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere near this. This is awful. And then, oh my God, how many of you guys have seen the movie Groundhog Day? Who's seen it? Anybody? Okay. It doesn't matter if you've seen it or not. It's just that there's this one character in the movie. His name is Ned Ryerson. And he's like this cartoon of an American insurance salesman, a typical sleazy, and in the movie, the star of the movie keeps bumping into the same insurance salesman every day, like keep bumping into him. Well, the guy who went up to speak right before me at the A meeting, he looked more and he acted more like Ned Ryerson than the actor who was playing Ned Ryerson. It was was incredible. But here's the real, think about this. I didn't know this, but this guy only ever showed up at AA meetings once a year to get his cake. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how the members feel about him? Do you think they like him much? Do you think they respect him a great deal? No. But you see, I don't know this. All I know is I can feel the tension in the room. Like I can feel the audience sending him negative vibes. And I'm like, my God, these guys are awful. They're vicious, because I don't know why they feel this way about him. I can just feel it. And I'm like, I'm next. I'm the next one to face this. Like, this is terrible. And so now you got Ned up there, and Ned has, he just, at that time of his life, he just had no class. He's standing up there and he goes, hi, my name's Ned and I'm an alcoholic. And then everybody goes, hi, Ned, you know, like they're supposed to. And then no kidding, he starts talking like he's like a lounge act in Vegas or something. He's like, so I just got back from Las Vegas or Los Angeles. He said, I just got back from Los Angeles. He said, has anybody here ever been to Los Angeles before? Like, this is not an AA talk. What he's doing is not part of the culture. It's not right. It's just, it's wrong. It's all his own significance. It's like he's doing it, trying to do a bad stand-up routine. And like nobody raises their hand when he says, has anybody been to LA? Nobody raises their hand because they've all been to LA, but they know what he's doing is not part of the culture, except this one woman. Her hand starts going up, I think all by itself. She's looking at it. What are you doing? What are you doing right now? Why are you doing this? And her hand's going up like this. And he sees the hand and he goes, oh, you've been to LA? How cool is that? My brother, I stayed with my brother and he lives in this apartment above the corner store. And if you go into the apartment and you go all the way to the back window and then you lean out over the balcony, you can see the Hollywood sign in the distance. Why are you telling us this? This is not an AA sharing. This is not the way we do things around here. I'm not even a member and I know. Look, unless this story continues like this. So I jumped off the balcony and I ran over to the Hollywood sign. I climbed up onto the H and I drank a bottle of tequila. Okay, now it's an AA story. But it's not an AA story without that. It's just some guy boosting his own significance with his stupid travel story. That's all it is, right? Anyway, he finishes his talk and this is the applause he gets. And I'm next. I'm going, oh my God, the room, the tension in the room, the pilots are making fun of him, the energy, and I'm next. And I'm like, I just want to leave. I don't know how I didn't leave. I don't know how I didn't leave. But I walk up and there's a podium, right? I'm holding on to the podium. Why am I holding on to the podium? Because it's preventing the falling over. Like I'm so dizzy from fear that I think I'm going to just go bonk onto the stage, and I'm holding on and my legs are shaking. And then I got a problem because you see, at an AA meeting, you're supposed to say, hi, my name's blank and I'm an alcoholic, but I'm not an alcoholic. I even said to my dad, I can't do this. I can't come and speak. I'm not a member. And he goes, do you drink? He knows I don't. No, I don't drink. And he goes, well, then you qualify. And I go, man, I don't think you understand alcoholism. The fact that I don't drink does not mean I'm an alcoholic. I think you got it backwards here. But now I'm standing up on stage and I got to say, hi, my name's Eric and I'm not an alcoholic. And then I know that like 50% of them are going to go, he's in denial. Denial, you know? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm standing up there and I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do. And I don't know where it comes from, but I suddenly get this in my head, this like American courtroom drama. You know, it's like, he did it. You know, that somehow that pops into my head. And I go like this. I go, hi, my name is Eric and my father's an alcoholic. Like I made this huge accusation and they all busted out laughing because there was all this tension in the room, right? And laughing is like the orgasm of the brain. And so suddenly I gave them this incredible laugh and all the tension in the room went away. And by the way, I felt better too, didn't I? How many of you have had that experience? You're doing some kind of presentation or talk and you trigger some laughter and then you feel better. Who's done that? Yes. Right? I learned that day, break the ice with something funny. Break the ice. If you break the ice, everybody feels better. So now I'm up there and and by the way, once you make them laugh once, don't you feel a little bit more brave? Right? Like humor's a risk. So now I've taken one risk and it worked. May as well take some more risks. And pretty soon I'm jumping through my talk and I'm talking about, I'm talking about like how valuable AA is. And I'm like, you know, I told him I'm so nervous. I didn't want to do this. My dad pressured me to do it. But in the end, the reason I offered to do it is because he explained to me that it was this 13th cake, and that's not a big deal compared to 10 or 15. And I said, I got to tell you that as a child of an alcoholic, I don't care what number of days or years or months you have, every single day that you're not drinking is an important day in my calendar, and that's the way it is. And then I said, my dad has been in this program for 13 years. I said, my boss is in the program. Wouldn't even have my job if the program hadn't saved his life. I said, my best friend who's sitting over there, he's in the program. I said, even my brother, all the way in Tokyo, is in the program. Has anybody here ever been to Tokyo? And I just did that. Just a little reference. You got me? Yeah, you're with me, Glenn. Just there, right? And what I had done is called a callback. So one of my clues for you is anytime you're at a conference and you're speaking, you want to hear the speakers that are on before you, because they're going to sometimes give you little bits of information that'll make your experience funnier or more powerful. It just really is helpful. So because I'd heard the previous speaker, I was able to make a little joke, and it was so funny. Because this is what happened. I go, has anybody here been to Tokyo? And they all knew what I was doing. And they all kind of went like, ooh, that was kind of naughty. And then I just got all into it. And this one woman, and she raises her hand, you know, she's been to Tokyo. And I go, oh, you've been to Tokyo? Well, my brother, he lives in this store, and he goes at the top. And if you go all the way to the back bedroom and you lean over the balcony, and by the time, I didn't even know what I was going to say, because there's clearly no Hollywood sign. But the thing is, it didn't matter, because the audience was laughing so loud, they couldn't even hear me anymore.
You're evil, man.
It was awful. One of the pilots was on the floor. He fell out of his chair. He's like, it was awful. And then anyway, then I finished up my whole talk, and I learned some really important things. Because out of 200 people, about 80 of them came up to me to talk to me afterward. And all of them said to me, Eric, that's one of the best talks we've ever had here. It was funny. It was poignant. It was just incredible. Would you please come back and speak again? Hell no, I'm not doing that. No way am I doing that. I'm sitting there feeling like I feel like saying, the reason I'm not answering you right now is I have vomit in my mouth. Like, I'm still terrified. I don't want to be here. But here's the thing. I want you guys to there's a big breakthrough I can share with you right now. As much as every single one of them told me it was one of the best talks they saw, they loved it, it was funny, it was powerful, important and poignant, all that stuff, I didn't believe any of them. Can anybody tell me why I didn't believe? In the chat, tell me if you can know. In the chat, why didn't I believe all the positive praise that was coming? Why didn't I believe? Glenn says my mindset was wrong. Sure, that's not bad. It's not the answer, but it's on the right track. Why wouldn't I believe? Yeah, your beliefs are part of it. There's a really specific reason, though. There's a really specific reason. I gave you a clue earlier on in this talk. Why am I not believing them? Let me ask you a different question. What did I do earlier to make so many people want to come and tell me how good I did? What did I do earlier that made so many of them want to come and tell me what a good job I did? I told them I was nervous. Now listen to me about this. If you admit that you're nervous, then they're going to come and tell you how well you did. Do you understand? And you're not going to believe them, because it's simply going to be sympathy, because you know that you only told them you're nervous to get sympathy. So now you go, oh, I'm so nervous about this. I don't feel like a born public speaker. And then they come up to you after and they're like, oh my God, Irma, Michael, Glenn, Gabriel, you're so good. And you're going, you're just saying that because I admitted I was nervous. Do you understand what I'm saying here, guys? You never admit that you're nervous. And you know, I had somebody say to me once, because I'm a big fan of you being you, authentically you on the stage. You being authentically you on the stage, right? Okay. If that's true, then what about when I tell you not to say you're nervous? Isn't it authentic to admit you're nervous? Isn't that authentic? And I want you to know, no, because nervousness itself is inauthentic. There's no danger up there. So why are you nervous? And here's one of the reasons. Because in school, you were taught a few things. One, the harder you make something look, the more praise and reward you get for it. Think about this. If you were very good at math and you got A's in math, your parents started accepting that you should get A's in math. So A's were no longer a big deal. You're just supposed to get an A. But if you've been getting like C's in French for all these years, and then all of a sudden you get an A, you get all the praise, right? You get praise for the stuff that came hardest to you. And the stuff that gets easiest, you don't get the praise the same way. If you take on a homework assignment and it was so easy for you, you don't get the same kind of praise if you can demonstrate how hard you worked on it. So we've learned to make things harder than they really are so that we can attract more praise. Except then the problem is we don't totally believe the praise because we're adults now and we know that we're being manipulative, so it doesn't work anymore. So what do you do instead? You walk on stage and you tell them you're about to kick some butt. You tell them that you're about to show some incredible things, that you're gonna deliver an incredible talk. You catch their attention at the beginning. And yes, now instead of 80 people, it might only be 40 people that come and talk to me. But you know what? All 40 of them are gonna be impressed and they're gonna be truthful and I'm gonna believe them. Does this make sense to you all? Are you with me? Okay, now there's one person I did believe that day. There's one person I believed that day. Who do you think it was? One person came up and gave me praise and I believed them. Who do you think it was? It was not my dad. It was not my dad. Here's the thing. Why? Because my dad has to do that, doesn't he? He knows that I was terrified. He knows that I was nervous. So of course he's going to come and tell me, oh my God, Eric, it was amazing. I could have bombed and he's going to tell me it was good. I don't believe him. Ned Ryerson. Ned Ryerson, the guy that I made fun of. I'm standing there and all these people are coming to talk to me. And then all of a sudden I see Ned walking across the room and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that to him. I'm like, I was such a jerk. I didn't mean to be. I just got caught up in the humor of it. I felt so bad. And Ned walks up to me and he walks right up to me. He holds his hand out and he says, that talk was outstanding. Holy, do I believe him? Damn right. He has no reason to be nice to me after what I did, right? So I, of course, believe him. And then he said this. He goes, that talk was outstanding. He goes, and plus, I got the message. Thank you. I was blown away. He was so mature about it. He's like, yeah, I get it. I'm a bit of an ego guy. And you really showed it to me in a nice way, in a funny way. And I believed him that I did a great job. Nobody else. So we don't admit to anybody that we're nervous. Now, let's just talk about something else about speaking. Did I need any notes to tell you what I just told you? No? Does it look to you like I'm reading slides or notes or anything? No. Why did I not need notes? Because I was just remembering what happened. The best talks in the world will never require notes from you. Never need you to use notes or slides or anything like that. I just did that whole thing. It took, 12 to 15 minutes. And it was one story about giving my dad his AA cake, but it taught you shared with you 4 or 5 really valuable things about being a speaker. Don't let them know you're nervous, get a laugh right at the front end, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's one story that teaches multiple points. And by the way, here's my question for you. Do you think there's a chance that you will remember what I shared with you today better than if I just told you the 4 points? How many of you think you'll remember it better because it came in a story? That's right, because stories are the key. They are the absolute key to putting information into somebody's head. Emotion is the glue that causes memories to stick. If you don't make somebody feel, they're not going to remember. Does this make sense? All right. So I want to show you something else so that I really want you to think about something. It's very important. How far could you go? What are your dreams? If you let go of what you think the limits of the world are, what do you think you could achieve? How many of you that are on this call with me right now have ever done something that the younger version of you thought was impossible? How many of you have done something that the younger, okay, there we go, quite a few. Oh, look, just about everybody. So my question then becomes, when did we start accepting impossible as a thing? Because when we're young, impossible just meant impossible right now. And then eventually we're going to overcome it. But as we get older, impossible starts becoming this absolute thing. Like some people think you might think it's impossible for you to have a New York Times bestseller, or some of you think it's impossible for you to write a book, or impossible to start a business, but it's not. This is exactly the kind of area where your mind and your decision has everything to do with your experience of life. And so what I want to suggest to you is that you becoming comfortable with being you, and you becoming comfortable with sharing stories, and you becoming comfortable talking to a camera or to an audience or what have you, could be one of the biggest gifts you ever give yourself. One of the biggest gifts you ever give yourself. And so I want to share a skill with you that I think will really help. When I told that story about the A birthday, how much vocal range did I give you? Did I tell the whole story in one tone of voice? I want to tell you about the time my dad invited me to speak at an AA meeting. I didn't want to go because I was so scared. He kept persisting and telling me that he really wanted me there. Eventually, I had this moment where I realized that I had a good reason to speak, so I agreed to do it. Then I went to the A. I'm making fun, but come on. How many of you have been to the webinar or even a live conference and some of the speakers were just like that? Who's been to that conference, right? They're out there. They're out there. But what that means is you need to think of it like this. If that person is on the stage, how hard would it be for you to get on that stage? Because if that's the standard, then you don't have to do very much to be better than that. You really don't. You just have to be you. And when somebody becomes comfortable with being themselves, everything begins to change. Everything begins to change. I can tell you that we humans, we've been sitting around fires for millions of years, telling stories and enjoying, learning from each other. Learning as we sat around the fires and hearing hunting stories and war stories and love stories. We learned a great deal sitting around the fire. And as a result, today, we really like stories. And by the way, we like our stories to be quite formulaic. We don't want them to be too different from each other. I'm gonna tell you a story right now. And in the chat, I want you to tell me what the name of the story is. Are you guys ready? You're gonna guess this story. Okay, I'll say certain facts and then you guess the story. And you can make more than one guess because I might drop a new fact and you think, oh, actually, maybe it's a different story. So here we go. Fact number one. The main character of our story is a young boy. Fact number two, he's an orphan. Fact number three, he's growing up with a relative like an uncle or somebody who's not very nice to him. Come on, what story is this, guys? Let's see the guesses. Haven't had any guesses yet. Can't give you more facts without more guesses. Oh, Batman, Pinocchio, David Copperfield. Interesting. So our young man meets at Harry Potter. Interesting. Annie. Okay. Our young man meets an old man with a beard. And the old man with a beard shows him that he has some special skills that other people don't have. King Arthur, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Merlin. Yeah, there's your old man with the beard. How about Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars? Are you seeing the pattern here, guys? That story is all of those stories. That story is all of those stories. They're not original. It's because humans like their stories to be. Here's another example. Superheroes, all of them, every one of them are orphans. I don't know if you've ever thought about that before, but they are. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. They're all orphans or de facto orphans. Like in the case of Wonder Woman, I don't think her mother's actually dead, but she's banished ever from going back to the island. So she's an orphan. She can't see her mother. Like every superhero is an orphan. And by the way, what else do they have in common? Well, they never have money. Now there's some exceptions. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but generally superheroes are not rich. There are some superheroes who are rich. Who are they? Does anybody know? Who are the rich superheroes? Yeah, Batman's one of them for sure. Batman definitely is one of the rich superheroes. Iron Man, he's a rich superhero. Those are the main two. And then there's also Green Arrow. But here's something about those three. You know what they don't have? They don't have superpowers. Because rich people buy their privileges. Do you understand? You're being conditioned when you watch the superhero story, you're being conditioned. Like Peter Parker sitting at the table with his uncle, and his uncle, Peter Parker being Spider-Man, of course, and his uncle says to him, Peter, I know we're poor, but at least we're honest. And then you're being programmed in a particular way to think about money in a particular way. Is it true? And that's like our stories are like formulas. We like to stick with them. Now, the good news is once you can start to spot the formulas, you can begin to figure them out for yourself. But here's what's really special though. As a speaker, stories are your ultimate tool. They're the best way to teach. They're the best way to create engagement. They're the best way to get in, it's just the very best way to get information out to people. And so I want to give you some clues about how to put a talk together, and then maybe we can do some Q&A. So here's the first thing. How many of you have ever written out one of your talks? Like you've written it out word for word. I'm getting ready to do a talk. I'm writing it out. Who's ever done that? Okay. So listen carefully. Hold on. Never, ever, ever do that again. Just don't do that. Never, 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 ever write your talk out. Never, ever, 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 ever write your talk out. And I'll tell you why right now. If you write your talk out, if you write it out like word for word, you write the talk out, then your brain will try to memorize the words you wrote. And then you'll end up telling the story like this. And then I went to the AA meeting with my father. It was my turn next to go up on the stage because of the way the order of the meetings go. I went up onto the stage and I grabbed both sides of the podium. You see, you would try to talk in complete, people don't talk the same way they write. Is it true? So if you write it all out, you're going to end up speaking the way you write, and nobody wants to hear that. So you use what we call a speech map, which is a mind map to record your speech. You save it with imagery, not with words. Then you have an entirely different situation because you have, you've got a circumstance where you don't have a bunch of notes. You've got a map that you can see when you close your eyes. So I'm going to show you a little bit like what a speech map looks like. Okay. So you guys get an example. Hold on a second. Dr. Liddy, you're right. Thor is an exception, but he's not actually a superhero. He's a god. So he doesn't totally qualify, right? He's a god, doesn't totally qualify. And the Black Panther has no superpowers. He has no superpowers at all. He's a fraud like the other rich superheroes. They buy their privileges, right? Like they don't have, there is one exception if you want to dig into it. And that is this, that the Incredibles, the kids have parents that are still alive, right? But they don't have grandparents. And by the way, here's something else. I'm sitting watching the movie Frozen with my wife one day. I don't know how she managed to get me to do that, but here I am sitting watching Frozen. And all of a sudden, little Ursula, I don't know what her name, Elsa's sitting there, and I don't know what happens, but she gets mad. She has some kind of little temper tantrum, and she's, ah! And all this ice comes flying out of her, right? And she's got superpowers. And so I'm like, oh no. And my wife's like, what? What's wrong? Is the ice dangerous? No. She'll figure out how to master the ice. The problem is that her parents are about to die. What? What do you mean her parents are about to die? There's not any clue of that. Like, in the movie, sometimes there's a clue, like there's a piano hanging from a rope over the parents. Oh my God, the parents are going to die. No, there's no clue the parents are going to die. So she's like, what do you mean the parents are going to die? And I go, it's just how it is. They have to because she's a superhero. What happens 18 minutes later in the movie? Dead parents. It's formulaic. But let's talk a lot about, let's go to this idea of a speech map. So when we're designing a speech map, one of the things that I like to do is I like to use a notepad or a whiteboard or something like that. And I put the topic in the middle. To remind me what I'm doing. And then from there, I'm going to go up and I'm going to deliver what we call an F15. That's the beginning of my talk. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to drop some kind of icebreaker story. And then I'm going to tell them what the talk is all about. I want to get them excited. Once I've done that, I'm then going to tell some kind of story that makes a point, right? I'm going to tell some kind of story that makes a point. Then I'm going to give them another point maybe, and then tell a story to help make that point. Because as I said, emotions are the glue that cause memory to stick. So we want to make sure that we use stories because they create emotion, and that way they'll remember what we're trying to teach them, right? So then once we've done that, we're then going to maybe use a longer story over here. And that one story might tell many different points, like I did with the AA story. And then when we're done with all that, we're going to tell our L15. And the L15 is the landing. And it's really important to get the landing right, because you absolutely need to end on time when you're a speaker. It's important that you end on time. And so one of the ways that's great to end on time is that you've planned your ending and you know how long it takes. So if you know that you have a 3-minute ending, and then you can see the clock says you have 5 minutes to go, you know that within the next 2 minutes, you need to start your ending. And then you'll end on time. And every producer in the world will like you. Here's a trick question for you. You're standing on the stage. There's 500 people on the stage in front of you. Who is your client? The audience that's in front of you, or the producer who's managing the show? Who is your client? Tell me in the chat. Who is your client? The audience or the producer? May, Gabrielle, 100% right. Absolutely, Glenn. The producer is the client. The only time the audience is the client is when the audience bought the tickets from you. So for example, right now, none of you are my client. In this situation, Quynh is my client. I'm not here for you, I'm here for her. And then in order to serve her, I'm giving to you. She's the client. But if it was my webinar, then you'd be my client. Does this make sense? Hello? Good. All right. So anyway, when we use a speech map like this, one of the things that it gives us is you don't have to remember that many things. It's kind of like, one way to think of it is like if a band is getting ready to perform a concert, if they've been around for a long time, they don't need to practice. They know their songs. Well, excuse me, what are your songs? Your stories. And so now you've got this talk and you go, well, I'm telling 3 stories. What do I need to know? I know what I have to remember 3 things, 3 stories. I don't have to memorize notes. I don't have to think about the words. I just need to tell those 3 stories. And let me tell you guys something. If you had told me, all those years ago, that one day I'd be speaking all over the world as an international speaker, that I'd be invited by Tony Robbins to come and teach business at his business mastery programs. This here is Tony introducing me on stage at an event in Fiji. If you had told me that, I would never, ever have believed you. If you told me that I was going to be hosting private retreats in my home, that people would pay thousands and thousands of dollars to come and spend a week with me to do a life planning session with them. If you told me that 5, 6 years ago, I'd be like, no way, it's insane. Why would, no, they're not doing that. If you had told me all those years ago that I was going to get to stand and perform in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over the world, I would never, ever have believed you. And if you were to tell me that one day I was going to get a letter from the Canadian government and they're asking me to come to Canada and get a medal from the Senate for the work that I'm doing, impacting lives from people around the world, I would never have believed you. But I can tell you this, none of those things would have happened if I hadn't got over my stuff, if I hadn't got over my fears, and I hadn't pushed forward and got myself the practice and decided that I wanted to be good at communicating. But I want you to hear me about something, because I know some of you, especially if you know me at all, or if you listen to Quynh, you'll be like, oh, well, of course Eric can do all those things because he's Eric. But I'm telling you that 10 years ago, I wasn't Eric. I mean, okay, I was technically still Eric, but I was very different Eric back then, and so I just want you to know that you don't need to worry about who you are right now. You need to worry about where you want to go. And you need to open up in my opinion, you need to open up your expansion for greater belief, because if you can believe just a little bit better, just a little bit more, then you'll start to spot the opportunities that can make all the difference for you. So I'm hoping that this has given you some both inspiration and some tools that you can use to get out there. And I want to leave you with a couple last thoughts about this. I again want to tell you that there is no skill anywhere in the world that can help you leverage your existing knowledge, your existing business, your existing opportunities better than speaking. Nothing. It is the ultimate marketing. Guys, think about this. One of my companies, some of you might be familiar with WildFit. I started off coaching 8 people at a time. 8 people. Now we have classes that sometimes have 1,000+ people in them in one class. We've had 25,000 students in 130 countries around the world. We have coaches in 40 countries around the world. The business is only 5 years old. It's incredible what we've accomplished during that time. And I would tell you that a big part of it is that I waited to start the business until after I became comfortable with public speaking. I think if I'd done it before, it would have been a totally different journey. Does this make sense? Are you guys with me? So thing number one is becoming comfortable and confident at public speaking can completely change your life. Thing number two is I want you to go out and get practice. I don't care where you get it. Go to Toastmasters. When COVID's over and we can get the Speaker Nation clubs up and running, go to a Speaker Nation club, go to the Lions Club, go anywhere where they'll listen and just get some practice. And by the way, how else can you practice? Facebook Live, Instagram Live. Just turn it on and start talking. And I know some of you are like, oh my God, somebody might be watching. That's why it's awesome. Because if you just record it the camera, you'll be tempted to stop every time you make a mistake. When you're live, you can't do that. And that's a much better training for public speaking. So you guys have the real ability to get the practice that you need in a variety of different ways, even during the lockdown. And I want you to remember, don't let them know you're nervous. Don't ever let them know you're nervous. I also want to remind you, you use an icebreaker at the beginning of the talk to really make sure that you loosen up the audience and get them there. And then lastly, I want to remind you, always be in the room for the speakers that are coming on before you. So you have the opportunity to feel the energy of the room and find out any topics they talked about that you might want to stay away from or touch on or use for humor. And lastly, use a speech map. Instead of writing out your notes, you create a map where you have tell a story, make a point, tell a story, make a point, and then you have so little to remember that you're just going to flow through your map. And one more thing on the map is that your map will give you a level of time flexibility that no other system would. If you write your talks out and suddenly they go, Eric, can you stay on stage for an extra 15 minutes? Then your only answer at that point is to speak more slowly so that you can use up the 15 minutes. Like that's all you got. But when you use a speech map, you realize, oh, well, I'm just telling this story about the time the rhinos tried to kill me in Africa. I can just tell it bigger. I can drag this story out for 10 minutes. It's super fun and exciting. And so the power of using those speech maps is not only that you don't need notes anymore, it's that you have complete time flexibility. When somebody comes to you and says, hey, can you cut, when you're scheduled to speak for 45 minutes, can you cut 15 minutes off? Most speakers have a meltdown at this point. Man, I flew all this way. I can't believe you would do this. I'm talking professional speakers. They have meltdowns. You know what I say when that happens? No problem. And at first they often think I'm a little crazy because speakers are supposed to be prima donnas or something. But in the end, they get it. I'm not going to blow up about it. I'm not going to freak out about it. I'm not even going to address with it until I know whether or not it's true. It's like, are you guys with me on this? Now, here's what I want to suggest to you is that thing about getting the practice, the first episode of practice is going to be the worst. The first time you go to a Toastmasters club, that's the toughest day. But you know what's really great? The second one is easier and the third one is easier. So I'm hoping you guys will go out and get a bunch of practice. And then last thing about this, you have a massive advantage over what I had. You have a huge advantage over me. You have people out there that are willing to teach this stuff. When I started off, it was really hard to find anybody who was teaching this stuff. There was the basic Dale Carnegie type courses and stuff like that, but there was no YouTube. I couldn't go. Now I can go watch Martin Luther King Jr. I can go and watch John F. Kennedy. I can go watch Barack Obama. I can go watch some of the best speakers in the world anytime I like. So can you. Comedians, so can you. You can go learn from these people right here, right now. And then, of course, you can go out and find yourself some courses. There's lots of courses these days. You can find them on Masterclass and Teachable and what have you. I just want to give you one piece of advice about courses. Make sure that you have resonance with the teacher. Like I saw this one woman doing a TED Talk on public speaking. It was the 5 keys to giving a great talk. And you guys, she didn't use one of the keys. No, I'm not kidding. She talked through all 5 keys without using them at all. So what I want you to know is that if you're going to work with a mentor or a coach or somebody, find somebody that is demonstrably good, that you watch them on YouTube and you're like, oh, I can't stop watching. You want somebody that can hook you like that. You want them to teach you. You don't want just some speaker trainer. So with all of that said, I'm up to do some, I don't know how much time we've got left, Quynh, but I'm happy to answer some questions if you want.
I would love for you to answer the questions because first of all, next thing is our lunch break. So I Can you spend a few extra time instead of
I can do a
the...
little bit. Sure. Let's do some questions.
Awesome, awesome. So first of all, you know what, guys? You know, when it comes to public speaking, and I told you or share with you, that is probably the one important skill that you need to master the most, that will most likely explode your business the fastest. And there's all kinds of different courses and trainers on how to do public speaking out there. The only one, and I've been to many, okay, and I'm coaching that myself. I'm in a program coaching that myself. The only one I know of that can teach you how to do your talk without memorizing anything, and how you can do it authentically and engaging the way that Eric can do. It takes practice, but he has the blueprint. He has a system that teaches you how to do that. And unfortunately, he cannot do it in like a 60 minutes talk. So I actually, I attended Eric's event. It's a 5-day course. It blew me away. And I have been to many trainers. And so right now, Eric has a program. It's a bit different. Eric, the program that you're doing right now is a workshop.
It's actually really cool, you guys. Like, here's what happened. We have our 2 big live events, and they sell out every year in advance. And they were, you know, the one was already sold out, and the second one was almost sold out. And then COVID-19 hit mid-March, and we're like, holy crap, I don't think these events are going to happen. And we had a big webinar scheduled. I mean, the webinar was designed to sell more tickets for this live event, but now there is not going to be a live event. So what do we do? And I have been working on this book called One Talk Away, and it was going to come with a workshop, a 3-day workshop on helping people design their talks. And so I went to the team and said, why don't we do that now? Like, why don't we just like advertise that right now at this webinar? And you know, we'll just get the One Talk workshop happening like right now. And so we rejigged the webinar, and then we were stupid. We set the price way too low because like COVID-19, man, we didn't know what to do. We wanted to help everybody, but we have a business to run, we have employees to pay, like, and so we all thought the program should be about, you know, $1,500 or $2,000 to spend 3 days with me designing your talk. Like, it's a pretty good deal. But we advertised it for like $800, I think. And then we had 6 weeks to fill it, and it sold out in 4 days. Like that, boom, gone. So then we scheduled a second one. And by the way, I just delivered the program and it finished on Friday. And the feedback has been mind-blowing because we figured out how to deliver really solid content online. Luckily, we've been doing it for years. So anyway, the first One Talk workshop was a complete success. And then we put a second one in the calendar, and it comes up, I think it starts on this Friday coming, like a little less than a week from now. And we left the pricing where we left it. We will not do that next year. Next year, we will put it to its proper pricing. But for COVID, we decided to keep it where it is. And there's still about, I don't know, I think there's still about 20 or 30 places left for the second one that starts in about a week. So any of you guys want to come and spend 3 days with me, let me tell you what you're going to get. First thing is, you're going to learn my formula for how I put talks together. So you will never need to use notes again. You'll be able to deliver your talk with real serious engagement, because then the second part we're going to talk about is context. Like, there's first the content, but then there's going to be the delivery. And we're going to talk about how you design the talk. So by the end of the program, by the end of 3 days, you have a talk that you've designed and you're ready to go. You could go deliver it on stage. You could deliver it on camera. You're ready to go. You've got a mind map all done with me having helped you get there. Then we're also going to talk about how to deliver, like how you tell the stories and how you deliver that talk to make it as compelling as possible. So you'll have a great talk. You'll know how to deliver it. But here's the real bonus you're going to get. You'll know how to do it in the future. You'll know how to put a talk together. If somebody calls you and says, oh my God, I need you to come and do a talk this weekend, you'll be like, I totally know how to do that. I'm ready. I know how to do it any old time. And so that program is called the One Talk Workshop. And Quynh, I
just put in the link for you, for everyone. Here's, by the way, guys, I paid $5,000 to attend Eric's event live in person. It was worth every penny. And if I have to do it again, I would, because it was worth every penny. Because once you learn this skill, the sky's the limit. You can create talks like anytime. And you know what? I'm not perfect as a speaker, but you know what? It works because I can tell the stories and I have my own way of doing it. And I'm not afraid on being on stage anywhere just because I know the formula. So I think that one skill can help you tremendously in your business. One thing I want to share though is this. As a speaker, there's different levels. And I'm sure Eric 10 years ago, the non-Eric, the non-Eric Eric was probably a lot less competent than he is right now. So when should you start learning how to become a public speaker?
Immediately, always. Immediately, constantly, and always. And Quynh, I'll tell you, people often ask me, Eric, you don't really need to be doing this. Like, when will you stop? When will you kind of retire from it or something like that? I'll tell you the answer. If ever I do 10 talks in a row and I can't think how to improve any of them, then I'm done. But as it stands right now, it's still a journey and an adventure for me. I have in 10,000 hours on stage in 20 countries around the world, I've only ever 3 or 4 times walked off the stage and thought, nailed it. Like only 3 or 4 times. And I'll tell you what, I'll come off the stage and I'll have a huge list of things. I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I could have done this better. I could have done that better. Meanwhile, I get the highest rating maybe from the audience. The producer's really happy. My team is blown away. The fans are crazy for it, but I've still got my list. And I want you to know that constant improving is absolutely key. You go to Toastmasters, you get the feedback, you improve next time. You go to Toastmasters, you get the feedback, you improve next time.
So Eric's course is actually for public speakers. It's not for, it's that good. Public speakers, current public speakers, if you're doing public speaking, take Eric's course because it's that good. It's actually for you. Anyhow, let's open up for Q&A because you are so amazing. I would love for our audience. Actually, in our audience right now, we have a lot of speakers, a lot of coaches, a lot of legal experts who are actually teaching and training their own expertise. So it's an amazing thing that you're here so that we can actually ask you questions. Does anyone want to ask Eric questions? Please raise your hand and then I'll call on you. And then you can just unmute yourself. Let me allow participants to unmute. Dr. Liddy, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I did it.
Perfect.
Thank you, Quynh. Eric, how amazing you are. And I'm sure you hear this constantly. And every time you hear it, it is the absolute truth. So here's my question. Is there any particular way that technical content, like I do law, business law, is there any particular way that that delivering that type of content can be more engaging and more interesting for the attendees that are listening to it?
Yeah, one of the ways to look at, like, I'll use accounting. Let's take something even
like
arguably even more boring than the law, let's say. And
I think they're tied.
They're tied.
Yeah, it depends. You know what? It depends on which accounting and which law. Let's put it that way, right? So the one way to look at this is that, like, there's literally stories, and then there's using storytelling. And so what I mean by that is that, okay, if I am the CFO of the company, I can come out and address the shareholders. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders. You'll recall that at the last quarterly meeting, we agreed targets of 16% growth on the quarter. And I got the envelope this morning from the accounting team, and it looks like we've actually achieved 18% growth on the quarter. Well done, everybody. That's your normal, right? That's your normal deal. But if I came out and I go like this, I go, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to give you guys the numbers for the quarter. And I want to remind you guys all, we were all here last month, right? Last quarter, and we were going through the projections, and we all voted and we agreed it was going to be 16% growth. That was the projection. And I got to tell you, I thought maybe it was a bit aggressive. I did. I thought maybe it was a bit aggressive. So this morning, I can tell you, when the envelope arrived from the accounting department, I paused before I opened it. And I just thought to myself, I wonder how it really went. We had thought 16%. I thought that was a bit aggressive. Let's open up the envelope. And I read the number, and I had to read it again. And then I had to read it one more time because, ladies and gentlemen, we achieved 18% growth on the quarter. That's the difference.
Wow.
Well
played. I like that. It seems like energy, and make it interesting, even though the content is boring.
And he turned it into a story. He turned it
turn it into a story. Yeah. Thank
And
you.
that's exactly it. So it's the same thing with like, I'll tell you a fun little legal story.
Ooh, yes.
So I used to live in England, and I don't like traffic cameras. I don't mind red light cameras, and I don't mind school zone cameras, but I don't like speed cameras that are sitting at the bottom of a long straight hill. You know, it's first of all, I believe in countries like America and Canada, and to some degree Britain, it violates our right to not be observed without cause. You know, it's like I don't agree with it at all. Anyway, so I'm driving home one day from a company function, and we're driving in convoy, me and two other cars in the company, and we're driving along, and flash, I get the flash in my rearview mirror, and about 2 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. It says that you've got this speeding ticket. Crazy thing is, the other two cars in the convoy didn't get speeding tickets that day. So like, it's like, I don't know what the difference was, but you know, so anyway, the trouble is I didn't have a British driver's license yet. I had a Canadian driver's license, which meant that I couldn't just pay the fine. Like if I had a British license, I could just put it on there, pay the fine, be done with it. But because I had a Canadian license, I actually had to go to court. And I thought, well, if I'm going to go to court, I may as well have fun with this. Right? I may as well experiment and have some fun with this. So I get to the courtroom, and the prosecutor, he comes up to me and he goes, "Hi, are you Eric Edmeades?" "Yeah, I'm Eric Edmeades." And he goes, "So how do you plan to plead?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just representing myself. I guess probably and watch what I did. I said, probably I should plead guilty. You know, probably I should plead guilty, but I really don't think that it was reasonable. And by the way, I have to step back a few weeks. One of my policies when I would get, because I'd had a few of these, is when I get a radar picture ticket, I follow a very careful plan of civil disobedience. I write back and go, I need the serial number of the camera. I need the calibration report of the camera. I need the training certificate of the camera operator. I just go, at the end of it, they're like, don't give that guy a ticket. It's just too much work, right? So funny thing is, this time around, I asked for a copy of the photograph. Like, you have every right for a copy of the photograph. So they sent me it. But weirdly, whatever clerk was in the room at that time took out the wrong photograph and gave me a photograph of my old car from a speeding ticket from 4 years before or something. Like, it was the wrong picture. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have the evidence. It just means they mailed me the wrong evidence. This is not enough to get me off. You know, it's like they clearly have the right evidence. They just mailed me the wrong one. But he goes, how do you plan to plead? And I go, I don't really know what to tell you. I said, I could plead guilty, but there's an evidence problem here. You know, they sent me the wrong photograph. Plus, I was driving in a convoy that night, and only one of us got a ticket. And I'm just telling you, I think the whole thing doesn't seem to feel right. And he goes, hold on a minute. I'll be right back. And then he comes back, and he says, and he says, I am so sorry. Why? And he goes, well, I called the Crown Prosecution Office, and I asked them if I could just dismiss your case because there's just no point in trying to prosecute you. And but the problem is I'm a contract lawyer, and they pay my fee whether I do your case or not. So they said, since they're paying me anyway, I have to do the case, and I'm really sorry. Hold on a minute. The prosecuting attorney is apologizing to me for prosecuting me. How do you think this is going so far, right?
Great.
Like, you know, it's not bad. So now I go into the room, and the guy in front of me, the guy whose case is being heard right before me, is like he's a drunk driver. And they hate him. They don't like him. They don't like his evidence, and they throw the book at him. They throw him in jail for 6 months. They take away his license for 3 years. Like, I mean, I was like, oh my God, I have to go on after that. Like, I am scared, man. I don't want to be in the courtroom at all. So then I make my way into the defense. You know, I'm in the little like criminal docket thingy, and I'm standing there, and it's a British court, right? So it's all pomp and circumstance. And there's 3 magistrates. It's not one judge. So they ask me, the prosecutor comes up and he goes, well, Your Honors, we've got an interesting case here. Mr. Edmeades was driving in a convoy with all of his company, and strangely, his car was the only one to get hit with the camera. And then we seem to have an evidence problem. We've got the wrong picture of the wrong car here. And so that's our case. And I'm looking at this guy going, holy crap. So then the magistrates turn to me and they go, well, do you have anything to say in your defense? And I'm like, right now, I probably shouldn't say anything. I think he's already said it all. But what the hell? I'm here to have some fun. So I go, well, I said, I have to agree. Like, guys, I don't know what to say. I don't know how things work in a courtroom. But all I can tell you is we left work. We left the party. We're driving along in a convoy. We're all spaced out. And only one of us gets a ticket. Just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Plus, and look, guys, I know you have to have speed cameras in the school zones, but what's this camera doing at the bottom of a long straight hill anyway? They bust out laughing. So I just like telling stories, and in the end I'm done. And I spoke for like 3 minutes, and maybe I made them laugh 3, 4, 5 times. And then they get up and they leave the room. And it's so funny the way they leave the room, because the way they leave the room, it's like they get up, one walks out, the other one walks out. The third one walks out. Now, I watched them do this for the drunk driver. They all 3 walked out, and they waited out there for like 20 minutes talking, and then they came back in with the sentence, right? But the one walks out, the second one walks out, the third one walks out, the first one walks right back in. Like, it was like, like that. Like, it was just ceremony, right? And they come back down, and they're like, we find not guilty through lack of evidence. Clunk, clunk, and you're out. And you know, guys, like, it was just, I got to tell you, I think it had everything to do with just being reasonable and telling fun stories.
Thank you. Fun stories.
Awesome. Is any other questions? I'll have time for one more.
Quynh?
Yes?
This is Carol Ann.
Go ahead, Caroline.
Yes, I wanted to find out if your training will help someone who is studying to be a pastor.
Caroline, can you please, because you turn off your video. You were on before, and now you're off. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I wanted to find out if your training helped anyone who wants to become a pastor.
You know, sometimes pastors are among the best speakers in the world. And that's because they come from a history of storytelling. I mean, history is his story. So if you think about, you know, in a very real sense, any religion is really just a form of history. I mean, it's I don't know how to put it, but it's like, it's telling stories. And so the one thing that I would say to somebody becoming a pastor is that they really get good at sharing real life stories, and not just the parables and things that are in their various religious texts. You might be familiar with Reverend Michael Beckwith. You know, so I'm a big fan. He's a friend of mine, and I think he's an outstanding guy. And some years ago, we were both speaking at this event, and I had to go on stage after him, which I got to tell you, you know, he's pretty dynamic on the stage, right? And so it's quite a thing. And so he goes up on stage and he does this incredible activation, and he's so good at it. And he does this great activation, but it's not storytelling. It's like major preaching, right? It's like, he's like, and then that's why I want to tell you about the full potential of your universal existence. When you come to get to the understanding that your decisions are something that are following your deeper intuition that allows you to be connected with your higher purpose, then your destiny will unfold, and it'll roll out in front of you the way it's supposed to be, magically and perfectly, in every single iteration of your being, where your cells are aligned with the universal.
I'm surprised you can even do that, Eric. That was pretty good.
Holy cannolis, right? And he does that. And he'll do that for like an hour, right? But then what was really funny is he did something different. And he came up to me afterward, and, you know, he knows that we have a lot of mutual friends, and he knows that I do a lot of like sort of, you know, speaker coaching and that kind of stuff. Not that he needs any kind of speaker coaching, but weirdly. And by the way, is it weird? Because he's outstanding, and outstanding people are always looking to improve. And he asked me my opinion, and I was so honored. Like, I was so honored. He's like, what do you think I could have done better? Like, how could it be even better? And I said, do you really want to know? Can I really tell you? Am I really allowed? Like, you got to have permission to coach, right? And he goes, yes, please. And I said, your activations are so good. They're so inspirational, and people will come back to them again and again and again and again, but they won't remember much about them. They won't. I mean, do you remember which universal potentiality I was talking about when your decisions were making your destiny, and which side, you know, like it's not designed to put information in, it's designed to bring your blood up, right? And I said, but this time you did something very different than I've ever seen you do before. And it was so powerful. And he goes, what was it? And I said, can I show you? And he's like, yeah. And I go, all right. So you're doing the whole activation. You're talking about the full potential of unleashing your faith in the universe and knowing that you can adjust yourself to every single circumstance, understanding that life is constantly happening for you and not to you. And that is when your destiny will fall. And then you went like this and you went, in fact, I was at the grocery store the other day and all of a sudden this happened and that happened and this. And what he did is he was in the activation and then he dropped into the story. And he told a real life story about the real life grocery store that took all the activation and put it into practical terms. And by putting in a story, guess what? Next time you're in the grocery store, you're going to remember his story. So as a pastor, I think that's one of the most important things you can do. Sure, teach the parables, read the scriptures, all that stuff is there. Great, you do that. But then what you want to do, in my opinion, is you want to tell stories about how you use it in your life. How you use it in your life. Like, I'll give you a really good example. Today, we're going to be studying the book of Job. Okay, so now we go into the book of Job. Like, let me tell you, like, for those of you guys who don't know the book of Job, it's not a happy story. Okay, it's not a happy story. Basically, if you want to understand the book of Job, basically God and Satan decide to have a contest to see who can screw up this guy's life the most. I'm kidding. Okay, I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. I mean, honestly, the devil's going, this guy only has faith in you because his life is good. No, watch this. I'll kill his wife. Still has faith in me. Look at that. I'll make him kill his own son. Still has faith in me. Like, I'll take everything away from him. And he's still, God and Satan. You know, don't let those two play. Nobody wins when those two are playing, right? But so you can share the whole book of Job, but look what I just did. I made it into like fun so we can go and have the conversation. And I can say, but listen, why did Job continue to have faith? Because he accepted that everything that was happening in his life was perfect. It was meant to be happening, even if it was uncomfortable. And here's what I want to say to you. The next time you get fired or lose your business or you get, you know, your partner wants to leave you or any of that kind of stuff, what you want to do is stop 1 second and ask yourself, do I really want my life to be easier or do I just want to be stronger? And that's how I would do it if I was a pastor. Sure, start with the actual teachings, then go into real life story, and then bam. I hope that helps.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Eric. And you know what? We are out of time, but I actually want you to address one thing, because here's the thing. There is I'm actually very transparent with everyone. I tell people, I bring people, the amazing people that I bring here are all heart-centered. And in the chat box, there is one person who wants to take your course on the speaking, but she's concerned because she was in WildFit in 2018 and it was a disappointment. And I
was just reading a private note she sent to me, and I while talking to you guys, I opened up the whole ticket system to find out what was going on there. Yeah. And and by the way, as a speaker, you need to be prepared that people will do things like that from time to time. You guys, if any of you ever want to go check WildFit out, you can go to our Facebook page or you can go to any review page anywhere. And we don't get comments like this very often. And we usually handle them really well. And in this case, Sheila says we didn't, and I'm going to have to look into why we didn't or what happened. It's incredibly rare for us. If you go and look at the review pages, remember reviews on Facebook are completely written non-anonymously by real people. And you can see what people are saying. Same thing with Speaker Nation. I don't really understand. I don't really understand what happened in this case. All I can do is tell you, I've opened the ticket up. I can on my screen over here while I was talking with you guys to try to figure out what happened for Sheila, because I ultimately want to know. I want to be really clear. We get really phenomenal reviews and really phenomenal feedback from our clients, but we don't rest when it doesn't happen. And, you know, we always are looking for, we're always looking for the feedback that helps us to make things better. And we wouldn't be where we are if we hadn't done that. Bear in mind, we barely marketed as a company, we've not marketed WildFit at all. Only our partners have. And we've grown exponentially over the last 6 years because we actually get results. So in this particular case, I can't speak to why it was. All I can tell you is if you go to, for example, if you go to the Speaker Nation Facebook page, there are a bunch of reviews that people just wrote because they went through the One Talk workshop. And I think that that's really where you need to go.
And here's the thing, Sheila, I just want to say this, Sheila, I've been through Eric's program. I have not been through WildFit, but I've been through his speaking. It's the best. So you are getting, this deal is amazing. Thank you so much, Eric, for keeping this price for my tribe, because I paid 5,000 folks and you're going to get it like in 3 days. When is it? It's coming up at the end of the month.
I think it starts on, I should have, wait a minute. I can tell you right now because you posted the link a second ago, so I can click it.
And you know what, Sheila? Here's the thing. If you don't like it, I will pay the rest. I mean, what is your guarantee, Eric? Because I don't know what your policy is, but usually,
I actually don't know what the guarantee on the One Talk workshop is. I imagine it's our normal satisfaction guarantee, I imagine. And by the way, Sheila, did you get a refund? I'm curious. I don't know where you are, but I'm curious if you got one. Sheila, it's okay. She's written to me privately going, oops, I meant to send this all to you privately. I'm not trying to cause you a difficulty. And Sheila, I'm okay. Don't worry. It's all okay. I'm an open book. I don't have an issue with it. But let's see here. But what I would say is with the One Talk workshop, with all of our programs, we have money back guarantees because we deliver. And that's,
and you know what, Sheila, you will not be disappointed. In fact, you're gonna love it, and you're gonna probably want to work more with Eric. That's how I feel. It's May
29th to May 31st, and it's 3 quite intensive, fun, full days. And we limit the class size. We only allow 100 people in the class, so because that way I can work with everybody on helping cultivate their stories. And so, yeah, I hope you guys will join us for it. It's incredibly powerful. And remember what I said, the point of it is to get you to a place where you have a talk. Like, how much is it worth to you to have one talk that you know you can deliver? The minute somebody wants you on a webinar, the minute somebody wants you to go on stage somewhere, boom, you're ready. You've got a talk you can deliver. That's an incredibly valuable thing. Plus, on top of that, you'll now know the underpinning of how I design talks and why they work so well. So you'll have both a talk and the skills. And that's what I want you to leave with by the end of the 3 days.
And it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Thank you so much, Eric, for being on this call and for being so generous with your time.
No worries at all. Thanks very much for having me. Thanks for doing the good work you're doing. And for all of you that were here today, it was a great privilege to be able to share with you guys. I really enjoy what I do. And I'm glad that there are people out there that are seeking, learning, growing all the time. So have an outstanding week ahead. One last thought I have for you guys is, the lockdown is not summer camp, it's boot camp. Use the lockdown to prepare for what's coming next, because it's a new world out there. And this is a great time to be doing exactly what you're doing right now, learning and growing, learning and growing. We are not here for life to be easier. We are here for us to be stronger. And the lockdown's a great time to get stronger. Have a great week, you guys. Quynh, thanks so much for having me.